Howdy, everybody. Today is going to be a bit of a different format for my Thursday afternoon video. Today is June 6th. As many of you know, roughly 80 years ago, the actually exactly 80 years ago, the Allies invaded the beaches of Normandy. And looking back now, a lot of people don't appreciate what those guys went through. I actually had the privilege of having crossing guards and security guards in my school in New York. Um, Actually, were B-17 gunners. One was a corpsman in Guadalcanal. He was deployed with the Marines, or what they call deployed. He was sent out with the Marines. Um, I did a lot of papers on World War II through high school, and the suffering these guys went through was just phenomenal, just mind blowing. What I want to do though is do a little dedication to them. So I'll be right back, and I'm going to read an article from the Army Times that's reposted on MSN, and I'll let you guys just take it in. I'll be right back. All right, folks. So forgive the advertisements. I'm going to read the article for you. And the article is called "What They Left Behind." It was written by Ernie Pyle, who was a well-known combat correspondent in World War II. It's easy to take the World War II Allied victory on D-Day for granted somewhat. The concept of an invincible wave of Allied soldiers trampling over desperate troops of defending Germans is steadily becoming embedded in popular history. Um, I'm going to scan down 10 months before his death on Leshim on the night of 5/6, 1944. Pyle crossed the English Channel amidst the vast Normandy invasion fleet arriving off Omaha Beach. Due to the intense struggle to capture the beachhead, Pyle and his fellow war correspondents had to wait offshore until permitted to land on Omaha on June 7th, 1944, which would be D-Day plus one. I'm going to read an excerpt. Um, After all these years, Pyle's writing allows us to hear the sheer silence of Omaha Beach. We can feel the magnitude of the devastation and witness the quiet heartbreak of many thousands of people embodied in the personal effects of men whose lives were extinguished before they even came ashore. So I'm going to read the excerpt here, and I'll let you guys just kind of take it in, and I'll share the pictures as well. Owing to a last minute alteration of the arrangements, I didn't, this is Pyle's words now. I didn't arrive on the beachhead until the morning after D-Day, after a first wave of assault troops had hit the shore. After it was over, it seemed to me a pure miracle that we took the beach at all. I want to tell you what the opening of the second front in Sector 1 entailed so that you can know and appreciate forever and be humbly grateful to those both dead and alive who did it for you. Ashore facing us were more enemy troops than we had in our assault force. So think about that for a second. The invading troops were outnumbered from the get go in that sector. The advantages were all theirs, the disadvantages all ours. The Germans were dug into positions they had been working on for months. They could shoot parallel to the shore and cover every foot of it for miles with artillery. Then they had hidden machine gun nests on the forward slopes, with crossfire taking every inch of the beach. Our only exits from the beach was several swirls and valleys. The Germans made the most of these funnel-like traps, sowing them with small buried mines. All this was on the shore, but our men had to go through a maze nearly as deadly before they even got ashore. Underwater obstacles were terrific. Under the water, the Germans had whole fields of evil devices to catch our boats. Several days after the landing, we had cleared only channels through them and still could not approach the whole length of the beach with our ships. The Germans had masses of great six-pronged spiders made of railroad iron standing shoulder high, just beneath the surface of the water for our landing craft to run into. They had huge logs buried in the sand, pointed upward and outward, their tops just below the water. Attached to these logs were mines. In addition to these obstacles, they had floating mines offshore, land mines buried in the sand, and more mines in the checkerboard rows in the tall grass beyond the sand. And this is a picture of that part of the minefield. Excuse me. I took a walk along the historic coast of Normandy in the country of France. It was a lovely day for strolling along the seashore. Men were sleeping on the sand, some of them sleeping forever. Men were floating in the water, but they didn't know they were in the water, for they were dead. I walked for a mile and a half along the water's edge of our many miled invasion beach. I walked slowly, for the detail on the beach was infinite. The wreckage was vast and startling. The awful waste and destruction of war, even aside from the loss of human life, has always been one of its outstanding features to those who are in it. For a mile out from the beach, there were scores of tanks, trucks, and boats that were not visible, for they were at the bottom of the water, swamped with overloading, hit by shells, or sunk by mines. So basically, out off the beach into the waters, just bodies and vehicles. Most of the crews were lost. There were trucks tipped half over and swamped, partly sunken barges, and the angle up corners of jeeps, and the small landing crafts half submerged. And at low tide, you could still see those vicious six pronged iron snares that helped snag and wreck them. The things they left in the sand. On the beach itself, high and dry, were all kinds of wrecked vehicles. There were tanks that had only made the beach before being knocked out. In this shoreline museum of carnage, there were abandoned rolls of barbed wire and smashed bulldozers, and big stacks of thrown away life belts and piles of shells waiting to be moved. On the water floated empty life rafts and soldiers' packs and ration boxes and mysterious oranges. On the beach lay expended sufficient men and mechanism for another small war. They were gone now forever, and yet we could afford it. We could afford it because we were on and we had our toehold. And behind us was such enormous replacements for this wreckage on the beach, you could hardly convince the sum total. And these, oh, hold on, this is, it doesn't let me expand it. Sorry, guys. But that's a picture of the logs that had mines. So when the water was high, the landing craft would come and hit them and blow upward and kill the men inside the landing craft. Men and equipment were flowing from England in such a gigantic stream that it made the waste on the beachhead seem like nothing at all. But there was another and more human litter. It extended in a little thin line, just like high water mark, for miles along the beach. It was the strewn personal gear that would never be needed again by those who fought and died for us to give us our entrance into Europe. There in a jumbled row for mile on mile were soldiers' packs. There were socks and shoe polish, sewing kits, diaries, Bibles, hand grenades. There were even letters from home with the addresses on each one, neatly razored out, one of the security precautions for the boys back home. There were toothbrushes and razors, snapshots of families back home staring up at you from the sand. There were pocketbooks, metal mirrors, extra trousers, bloody abandoned shoes, torn pistol belts, and canvas water buckets, first aid kits, and jumbled heaps of life belts. I picked up a pocket Bible with a soldier's name in it and put it in my jacket. I carried it half a mile or so and then put it back down on the sand. I don't know why I picked it up or why I put it back down again. Soldiers carry strange things ashore with them. The most ironic piece of equipment marking our beach, this beach first of despair, then of victory, was a tennis racket that some soldier had brought along. It lay lonesomely in the sand, clamped in a press, not a string broken on it. Two of the most dominant items on the beach refuge were cigarettes and writing paper. Each soldier was issued a carton of cigarettes just before fighting. That day, those cartons by the thousand, water soaked and spilled out, marked the line of our first savage blow. And it's this is an excerpt from Brave Men by Ernie Pyle, published by Penguin Classics. Um, I don't think, and he was an excellent writer. He was phenomenal. Sadly, he died during the war. Uh, wow. like the visual he gives with written words, no photos. I mean, very few photos. I don't think our society today understands the magnitude of what happened, the sacrifice, the pain, the suffering, the loss, and more importantly, the horrendousness of battle. And anyone who's been in the military, deployed, or even like guys like me who we didn't go into combat, but we have friends who came home from that, and we saw the after effects on the survivors and the victors, so to say. It's hard to truly fathom what that man was seeing on the beach that day and what had happened to that beach not 24 to 36 hours before he got there to write his piece and take those photos. So, folks, if you see veterans, especially these old World War II, Korean War, Vietnam guys, we're starting to lose a lot of them. There'll be a day when there are no more World War II vets with us. Um, we need to share the information, share the knowledge, thank them if we see them, and most importantly, appreciate the things we have. This is going to be a really, really contentious year in our country. And I fear that more difficult times lay ahead. And we as a people, as a community, both in the preparedness community and as Americans, Canadians, British, we need to appreciate and understand how we got here and what we can learn from their sacrifice going forward. I try as much as I can whenever I run into younger individuals, the Gen Z that we all like to joke about, and educate them as much as I can. I think a lot of the bitterness, the resistance is because they just don't see it. Because truthfully, we have a generation other than COVID has really never seen horrendousness the way these guys did. Um, when you lose millions of people and tens of million mores in injuries, it's hard to fathom. And the carnage, they didn't die from an illness, they didn't die from an unfortunate accident. This was human beings being horrendous to one another. And if you haven't had a chance to watch my video on the Holocaust Museum in Dallas, I encourage you to watch it. It's going to blow your mind, some of the maps I post and how many concentration camps there actually were. There were 7 big ones everyone talks about. There were over 250 smaller camps and confinement facilities where just horrendous stuff went on. People don't realize, like Bayer Company, the medical company, there's letters in the museums where the executives of Bayer were asking the SS to send more Jews so that they could test medicines on them. Most of them were dying in the process. They even put it in the letter. The experiments that were done, uh, I don't think, and horrendous stuff happens now, but that was on an industrial scale. I just can't even, I can't describe it. I encourage you to watch the video. I will eventually put out another one with some more footage of that museum. But folks, take some time for prayer, take some time for reflection, and understand that these times, as awful as they were and as far back as they were, uh, they can happen again if we don't learn from the past. So, folks, be mindful, read, reflect, stay blessed, and I'll try and do a live stream first chance I get. But until next time, God bless, Godspeed, and let's not forget those lessons of the past. You guys stay safe out there.